Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and today I'm here with CJ Lyons. Welcome CJ.
Hi everyone. Hi Joanna.
I'm excited to talk to CJ today because we're going to talk about how to sell 1 million books, which to be fair, we all want to know. But CJ, why don't you start? I mean, you're a New York Times bestselling author. You've sold over 1 million self-published books. You've got deals with New York Publishing, but it hasn't always been this way, has it? So maybe just take us back, tell us a bit more about you and your writing and publishing history.
Oh, great. Well, this is where we get to talk about all the times I failed. But as I like to say, as long as you're failing forward each time, it's not really a failure, it's an opportunity. I actually sold my first book to a major New York City publisher back in 2004. And it was a preempt deal, which meant they were so interested, they paid me extra money so that we didn't let other publishers bid on it. We had endorsements from over a dozen New York Times bestsellers, including Sandra Brown, who called it the perfect blend of romance and suspense. We had really big pre-orders for a debut author coming out in hardcover. And then, about 90 days before the book was due to be published, it got pulled.
Oh.
It was killed because of cover art, and there was nothing I could do about that. So it was totally out of my hands. Now, of course, I had actually, and I do not advise that most people do this, at the time I had been a practicing physician, a pediatrician for 17 years, and they liked that first book so much that I already had a deal for the second, and we were talking about a third. And I had interest from other publishers. So thinking that I had my chance to start a second dream come true career of being a full-time novelist, I quit my day job. I quit my medical practice, and I moved 1,000 miles away. And suddenly, I don't have a contract. I don't have a deal. And for the first time in my life, since I was 15, I was unemployed. So I did what I've always done in times of chaos and trouble. I wrote. I kept writing. And I kept networking with my friends who are writers. And I bought my rights back to the books from the first New York City publisher because obviously I just couldn't trust what they would do with that product. And honestly, since then, I've self-published it. It's now called Nerves of Steel, and I've earned close to, not quite, but close to 10 times as much in 2 years as I would have earned with that New York City publisher. So, see, it wasn't a bad thing. That's why I talk about failing forward. But the other thing is 2 weeks after I bought the rights back is when Berkeley came to me and asked me to create the Angels of Mercy series. And this is the real kicker, and this tells you that karma definitely has a sense of humor. The book that I hit #2 on the New York Times list with, and that sold 250,000 copies in 2 months, was the book that I wrote during that time of anguish and uncertainty and self-doubt. And it's called Blind Faith. So what goes around comes around, and I guess it's nice that stories do have a happily ever after sometimes.
Oh yeah, and I think what's also good about your story is you mentioned there you started in 2004, right? And we're recording this in 2013, and some people might see you as wow. In the last year, things have just exploded for you in so many ways. It feels like that almost, and yet it's been a long journey, right?
Well, that's what they say. Overnight successes take about a decade to build. And so I've been not quite a decade, 9 years, so close to it. But no, this really is the type of business, the type of career path that you are in for the long haul. And I think a lot of people get frustrated. They write their very first novel ever. They expect to publish it. If they get rejected from New York City publishers, they decide to self-publish it. And they don't realize that most successful multi-published best-selling authors, it's not their first book that gets published. It's more like their fourth or fifth, which means about 500,000 words on the page. So you really have to do your apprenticeship. You really do have to learn your craft. You have to practice it. And that means putting your butt in the chair. People ask, what kind of writer are you? I say, I'm an ABC writer, apply butt to chair. And putting your butt in the chair and just pounding the keyboard and getting those stories out. Because that's how you learn what works and what doesn't. And where your own style is, as opposed to being influenced by the people that you want to write like them. So, it really is a process that takes a while.
Okay, so you've already given us some tips there, but everyone just wants to know, what is the secret? You've mentioned ABC there, but what is the secret to success? And then maybe we can delve in a bit further.
Here's the secret. All right, you guys all got pen and pencil. This is good stuff here. You're gonna hate it though, because it does imply a little bit of work, and patience, which for me is the hardest part. Write a great book. Give your readers time to find it and tell their friends, and then repeat. And that's 3 steps that are extremely actionable. The problem is that depending on the writer, you can stumble at each step, so you do have to be careful. The writing a great book, that means you need a team, just like in New York City. And this works for traditionally published authors just as well as indies. You need a team that's going to edit you and give you honest feedback. So not your great Aunt Martha, okay? You need copy editors that, can look and do line edits and correct grammar mistakes. If you're going indie, you probably need a cover artist. So you need to work on a team to get that book and take it to the next level. Because even though we're creatives and we're artists, we all have our limits, and the goal for each book should be, can I take this past my limits? Can I go further? And the only way to do that is with help. You can't do that alone. So write a great book. Then the next step takes patience. Now, I know you're a champion at this, Joanna.
No. I don't think any of us have any patience, to be fair.
I'm the same way. But I have found this, for me, step 2 is the hardest, and that is give your readers time to find it. Blind Faith was actually out for a year. And for half a year, I realized it was the book paying my bills. So I didn't really want to mess with it because it was finding its own readership. And then I finally did start to actually do some things with it. I made it, for the first time ever, I reduced the price as a special reader appreciation sale. And that actually is what launched me to the top of the New York Times list. But before then, I was just so hesitant. I was like, this book is finding its own readership. I don't want to mess with that. And it was probably good that I didn't. But I have to tell you, it took a lot of restraint because I'm not patient. And I think so many of us aren't willing to wait. But here's the key. And I don't even think I've mentioned this to you before. I just figured this out very recently. If you look at a publisher's curve of like book sales, the publishers are looking at that launch period, which is very, very short, a couple weeks. And the reason why that's all they care is about how high the book goes during the launch is because they have other books coming out of the pipeline. So they don't have to care. But where people that are self-publishing and where authors live, we live at the bottom of that curve. And that's, where does that book plateau with steady sales over time? And if you can raise the bottom of that curve, that plateau, high enough where you can make a living as a writer, then everything else on top is gravy. So once I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what they're talking about with the long tail. It's like it just took me a long time to put those pieces together. But when I think of that, it helps me be more patient. So hopefully that'll help other people. Patience is a virtue. You have to let your readers find the book and give them time to tell their friends. And I think we'll talk about in a little bit how to find your readers. But let's get to step 3, repeat. This is what so many people don't do. They get the first book out there and they're so obsessed with it. They keep trying to market and promote and figure out how to, play the system and get this book on bestseller lists. And you don't realize that what their readers really want is more. So you have to get back and write the next book and make it even better than the first. And then keep doing that. So really taking the time and effort to write your next book and get it out there for your readers is much more important than promoting your first book.
No, absolutely. And I'm what, 10 years behind you, I think of myself. Well, at least at 7 then. But it's funny because my 3rd book's just come out, and I actually, with Exodus out, my income is, has almost stepped up a bit, and the sales of the other books also benefit. So I totally get what you mean. But I also remember a very short time ago, a couple, 2 years now, when my first book came out, I just wanted to market that book. So I think people listening should understand that, we totally get it, but you do have to write another book. So let's get into some more details then. So in terms of creating the best book possible, is that to do with understanding your audience, understanding, who you're writing for? Is that the most fundamental thing?
I think so. I truly do, because of a few things. First of all, when I'm writing a book that I really get into and that I love and I'm passionate about, that communicates itself to the audience. So I think your first member of the audience has to be yourself. You can't be writing just because something's hot or just because there's a certain trend and you're trying to hang on to it. Write the book of your heart, the one that you can really feel that passion and put the words on the page that reflect that. Mm. But the other thing is, once you finish writing for yourself, which for me is usually the first draft, and you want to turn this into a product, you are asking people who are very, very busy to give up. I mean, how many hours does it take to read a full-length novel? Like 6 to 8? So to give a full day of their time, not to mention the money it costs them to buy your book. So you're asking them to really invest in you. So you need to think of it. How can I take this book the next step, the next level while I'm revising it? And again, this is where you probably need to start bringing in outside help, people that can give you honest feedback, because you want to give your readers the best possible experience, because they're entrusting you with their time and their energy and their hard-won, dollars. So you need to reflect that you understand that and that, you actually honor that investment in you.
Mm. No, absolutely. And I guess you really helped me with the author branding for my fiction, and you helped me kind of break through that. And you have this Thrillers with Heart branding, because of course you've written all the way across from romance to now you're writing kind of hardcore FBI thrillers, which violent end of the spectrum. How did you kind of figure out your author brand, and how does that relate to the promise to the reader?
Well, that's what branding is to me. It's an emotional promise to the reader. What emotions are you offering them? What experience are you offering them? And I actually sat down because I was having a hard time pitching early on to editors and agents. So this is back in like 2003. I was like, how do I describe my books? Because they all had, at that time it was mainly a romantic relationship, but they all had a true relationship at the heart. And while they all were crime fiction, they weren't really about who done it or solving the murder. It was more about the impact of the crime emotionally on the relationships of the main characters. So they're very character-driven, which at the time most thrillers weren't. They were more plot-driven. So I came up with Thrillers with Heart because they had the action, the suspense, the fast pacing of a thriller, but they also had the emotional heart of a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship in my earlier books, and I still have some romance in some of the later ones, but the mainstream ones are actually more focused on the relationship of my main character, Lucy Gardino, and her family. She has a loving husband and a teenage daughter. So I think that finding at your core, asking yourself the tough questions about why are you writing these books, what attracts you to them, you're going to find a common theme, even if your work goes past different genre boundaries. Because remember, those are very artificial. So think about your reader. Why would a reader want to read these books? What are they getting out of it emotionally? What experience am I promising them? And am I going to deliver on that promise over and over? Which I think you certainly have totally personified that with your own branding.
Yeah, which I should say is ancient mystery, modern thrill, which, and I think people need to really listen to you on that, and I want to just reiterate it because it was so major for me when you helped me find that. It's like, what is the core of your interest in writing? And for me, it's research. It's the kind of really interesting, cool stuff I find out, which is often ancient mysteries. So I think if people delve deep, and I get questions on this all the time, so that was fantastic. So we're not going to talk talk about any details around self-publishing, because we know that, you know, I want to pick your brains on other things. So once the author has got their book out there, whether it's traditionally published or indie published, how do readers find that book when that, okay, so we've said write more books, but, you know, how do the readers even initially find that book?
Well, and that is often the hardest part. And again, this happens whether you're traditionally published or if you're indie published. You need to know where your readers are and what they're looking for. I had a great success early on by going to conventions that were reader-oriented. Romantic Times here in the States is a great one. And now there are several different conventions, Thriller Fest for thriller writers and thriller lovers. There's several mystery conventions. So really any genre, the science fiction guys have tons of conventions where a writer can interact with their audience is going to serve you well. The other thing is we have so many opportunities now via social media and the internet. So that if you can invite your reader into your world and get them to go ahead and either click on a link in an ebook, or you can, you know, I always put a little letter to readers in all my traditionally published books, my print books, saying, hey, come visit my website, sign up for my newsletter if you want to join in on the conversation. And I have found that actually many readers do respond to that. So you may not know where your readers are until after your first book is out and they find you, but if you're smart, you'll start finding them before you even publish that first book. And again, this is where social media can really be a lifesaver. Once you realize what your theme is, what your brand is, what kind of books you're writing about, you will have opportunities to go and join reader forums or groups or Facebook pages or anything like that that reaches out to those readers. And you'll start to be able to experiment with what resonates with them and what works and what doesn't. Your own personal, not the Creative Penn blog and website, but your personal website does that very nicely. You reinforce that brand of ancient mystery, modern thrills all the way through it. And I think that's a very important step for writers to take. And it's hard, though. And you're the expert in social media. It's hard for me. I'm not good at social media, so maybe it's easier for you. But
let's point out, and I think this is important because, you know, and we're talking about fiction here primarily. You know, with you, we're talking about fiction, and I don't think social media is even actually necessary. You know, I think and you don't blog on your blog. You know, your reader blog. What I wanted to sort of highlight with you and ask you about is email marketing, because I think this is critical. And, you know, and this is what I have on my fiction site, which is sign up here for updates, and in the back of the books it says come and sign up here for the next book. Now, you use email marketing amazingly well with your fiction readers, so tell us about how you use that.
Email marketing has actually been my answer to social media because I'm almost never on Facebook. I don't usually use Twitter for my fans. I don't blog for readers. I just don't have the energy. But I found myself, I was like, I can reach out to readers once a month and compose an email. So for me, it was almost in a way an easy way out. But I found that it really resonated with the readers that took the time to sign up for my mailing list. So those have now become my core readership as far as reaching out and interacting with them, and I can usually rely on them for early reviews. Those are also the readers, though, that I'll reward. You know, I'll tell them first when something's happening or a book's going on sale or I'm putting on a special sale price, or I will give them lots of books. Early on, before ebooks came around, I actually physically, after my first book and before the second book came out, I emailed my list, which at the time was only about 5,000 subscribers, and it was around Christmas time, and I said, let me solve one of your holiday problems. I will mail you a copy of a book signed for a friend for you to give as a holiday present. And, you know, I had to buy them all myself. I had to pay for the shipping. My publisher did not support me in this, but I ended up shipping out over 350 copies of my first book. But those people were then all primed in 2 months to buy my second book. So I have found that if I treat my readers with the respect that they deserve, and if I try to always be generous with them, they are very willing to return the favor by giving me an email address. In fact, even now, I still give away a free book to anyone that signs up for my mailing list. By the way, it's cjlyons.net. You guys can go and sign up. And I have skewed my my newsletter. Instead of just monthly being all about me, I now periodically will do interviews with people like Lee Child and Sandra Brown and Lisa Gardner, and well, Lisa's coming up. We haven't done hers yet, but you know, we go and you know, we'll film or do an email interview with people, and that goes out to the newsletter, so they get a little something extra. It's not all about me, and I think that's where some people go wrong with their emails and why they start to lose readers. Is that when you make it all about you instead of being all about the reader, then you lose that connection. Okay, that's a one-way conversation. It's not a conversation, I guess. It's a one-way monologue. Whatever.
It's push rather than a conversation.
Yeah, and I enjoy conversations. And in fact, I'm actually branching out. I get so many fan letters, and we end up having these wonderful email exchanges. But I realize those are also very linear because they're two-way, but they're not branching out to my other fans. And so we're actually starting a Goodreads community called Thrillers with Heart. And again, it's not going to be all about my books. We're going to try to invite other thriller authors to come on once we get enough readers to make it worth their while. And that way people can talk amongst themselves about their favorite books and authors. And hopefully those conversations will then be multi-layered instead of just a two-way between me and my fans in the email. So we'll see if that works. But I'm interested to try it.
No, that's fantastic. And one of the things you talked about there was reviews, and of course reviews are critical. You know, again, it doesn't matter how you get published. When your book's up there, it needs early reviews. And you have what you call your street team, and that's part, you know, related to your email marketing. But just explain your street team and how that works.
Well, I've had over 14,000 people sign up for my mailing list over the years. I started in 2004. And so I realized that I couldn't ask all 14,000 people to go out and review a book or offer a free book for them to review. So what I did was I started to ask people that had already left reviews if they would, you know, send me a copy, send me a link of the review. I would offer them another free book for them to then review again. And that's how I built my street team. And it's now almost 300 members, which actually I've stopped accepting new members at this point because 300 is actually more than I can handle. But I couldn't turn people down. And so they don't all like all of my books. So, I mean, sometimes they'll leave reviews and they're 3 stars, but a lot of times I can count on them for 4 or 5 star reviews. And the best thing is, though, I can count on them for early reviews so that I can get those books up, and then I will get, you know, a nice number of reviews in that very first week, thanks to them already having time to have read the book. So I think that's a great win-win, and honestly, that's what publishers are doing when they're sending out thousands of copies of advanced readers copies. So, you know, I think it's a very ethical way to reward my readers, but also I'm getting a little something in return. But again, it's the exact same model that traditional publishers use. So,
yeah,
you know.
Absolutely. And I want to point out there that even though you have these many thousands of people on your list, everybody can start this now. And you know, I started my JF Penn. Yeah, we all start with nobody on the list. You know, we all start nowhere. And I started my list, you know, almost a year ago, and it's got a couple of hundred people on it now. But you know, in 9 years' time, it's going to be rocking. So, and I did the giveaway thing for Exodus and got, you know, a smaller number of people. But the thing is, we can all start somewhere. So I don't want people to be listening to you thinking, oh, I have to have this many to even start.
No, but you need to start a list.
Yes.
Too many people rely on other social media platforms such as Facebook, and you never get that list. If Facebook closes down your page for any reason, or Twitter closes your account, or, you know, something happens with the computer system, you've lost contact with all of those potential fans. So I do really stress with people it's important. That was the very first thing I did with my very first website, was I had the email list, because I realized instinctively that that was going to be very important in being able to have a group of readers that had given me permission to talk to them. So part of it's because I'm an introvert and I'm not real outgoing. I'm not real comfortable with just joining a readers forum and shouting out, hey, look at me. So this gave me an intimate way to connect with readers, but you really need to do that. And so that is the one key that I would stress for everyone, as far as if you're only going to do one promotional thing, have a website with a mailing list.
Yeah, and that's the number one thing I say too now, so fantastic. Okay, so I also wanted to ask you about pricing, because it was pretty much when you changed your pricing on a promotion for Blind Faith that I believe that's when it hit the New York Times list, right? So can you tell us a bit about pricing and whether you think that was whether pricing even makes an impact anymore with the changing algorithms?
Well, you have to remember that was 2 years ago. So pricing back then was very, very different than it was now. I had basically sent out an email to my newsletter readers saying, I want you guys to help me make a dream come true. I want to hit the top 20 of Amazon. And to help you out, I'm doing a special reader appreciation offer where I'm lowering the price of Blind Faith for the first time ever to 99 cents. And I also said, here's how to give it away to your friends, because Amazon had just started the little gift button and no one knew what that was about. So I think that combination really helped, because a lot of my readers on my newsletter had already read Blind Faith, but it encouraged them to give it away to other people. And that's the real trick, is how do you reach new readers? When you're looking at price strategies, now this is indie publishing, but it also impacts traditional publishing. I have discussions like this all the time with my traditional publishers on how we can use backlist, especially the ebooks, to actually promote the front list more effectively. And a lot of that does come with pricing strategy. The reason to change your price has nothing to do with the people that have already bought your book. It's about new people. How do you reach new readers? And there are new readers at different segments of the price point. I actually have had just as much success raising my prices as I have lowering them. The reason for that is the way most of the ebook search engines are designed is there's cutoff in the prices. There's 99 cents and lower, $2.99 and lower. I think the next one is $4.99 and lower. Yeah, $5.99 and then $7.99. So when you're hitting one of those, I don't know, it's almost like geology where you have different strata. You're reaching different people with those price points. So when you change your prices, whether going up or going down, it's got to be so that you can impact a new group of readers, not the ones that already know you. And so, you need to kind of be a little patient and try it. Free books used to be a really great way, but I think with KDP Select, they've kind of diluted that impact. So now, free books are a great way for unknown authors, people that have never heard your name. They'll at least give you a try. So KDP Select might be useful, or going free on Kobo or iTunes will also let you go free. It might be useful for that. If you have a particular project, like perhaps the second book in a series, and you want the first book to get some exposure, going free on iTunes or Kobo might be a good way to get it up the ranks, or using KDP Select for that. But your goal is the second book. It has nothing to do with how many copies you give away the first. It's how that impacts the sales of the second book, which is a paid book. So again, you need to take this all into consideration. And I'm not a mathematician, so I kind of do this by instinct. But I know a lot of people are very good at looking at their sales figures, and they can accurately predict what a price point change will do for them. So whatever works for you.
Yeah, and again, having multiple books is the key for these pricing kind of experiments. So we'll say that again. So I guess one big sort of question for you is around traditional publishing versus indie publishing, because you are a hybrid author. You're one of these people who has both traditional deals and indie deals. Now, many people these days are sort of everything's changing every minute. Like we've just heard Hugh Howey of Wool, who's amazing success, but has sold his print rights, kept his digital rights. What should authors be doing, and what's your opinion of publishing right now?
I've also kind of had some enlightenment on this recently, because I was actually turned down for several speaking engagements when people realized that I was still associated with New York City publishing. Like, for some reason that was a stigma instead of being strictly indie. And I was like, wait a minute, how everything has changed. And in fact, I think in a way I was way ahead of the curve. Both the print deals that Bella and Hugh just recently got, we turned down those offers from the same presses. Now, the offers were not as high because it was before they made those deals. And we turned them down because we were like, the money just wasn't there. But now the money is starting to be there. I think what authors need to think of is not, am I indie or traditional? I hate that versus that always goes in the middle. Indie versus traditional. I think you need to think of yourself. What tool will get my books out to the most readers in the most venues that I want to hit? In other words, you're like a CEO. And whether you're, I think of my traditional publishing in some ways as subcontracting. Subcontracting print rights because I can't do mass market print on demand, and I don't have the distributorship that they have. I'm subcontracting some editorial jobs that they do. I also have freelance editors that I work with for my indie. So, it's like all various departments of a big business. And when you look at it that way, and it's just all about what helps you reach the most readers, who cares if it's through New York City or traditional or indie? It's what works best for your readers and where they are. So I have really kind of just walked away from all those arguments, because it's like, you know what? It's about what is going to serve my readers and what is going to give me more time to write. And if that means subcontracting out by making a contract with New York City, or if it means working with a small press. Right now I'm working with 2 small presses, one for my print books, which has been a wonderful partnership, and one for a new YA series, which is also, we just started, but it already looks like it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. So that's what I'm looking for, is the opportunities.
And if people are just starting out, so I know some people come into self-publishing now wanting it to be a way to get noticed. Do you think that's likely now?
Yeah, no, I think it can be, but it all depends on the people that are getting noticed or the people that are serving their readers, because it's a reader response that drives that notice. It's not you just putting a book out there. It's your readers raving about it and telling their friends. That second part of that equation we talked about at the beginning. So that's a little bit out of your control, other than writing the best book possible. And so I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't make that part of your, what do they call it? Not career plan, but when CEOs of companies have business plans, you can't count on that. It's out of your control. So, but you can control how many books you're writing and what the quality of those books are, and making them the best book possible. And you can control the conversation you have with your readers. And if they take it past that traditional publishing, then you entertain that as an opportunity. It doesn't mean that just because a New York City publisher comes to you, you should take that contract. You need to look at it. You need to look at it very carefully. The contracts are changing literally monthly right now. Things that we had no chance to negotiate last year are totally on the table right now. Things that were on the table last year are totally off the table. So you have to look very carefully from a business point of view. And I would encourage new authors, don't think of it as, oh, I want to be published by a certain publisher or by a certain kind of publishing. Think of it as, I want to get these stories that are so close to my heart out to readers. What's the best way for me to do that? And then explore those opportunities. It's all about opportunities and possibilities.
And I like what you're saying, and it's very much about empowerment of the author. And it was funny, I was on a panel at a publishing event with Johnny Geller, who's a UK agent, and I had said something about this empowerment, and he said, yeah, stop authors being so grateful all the time. Like in the past, there's been this sort of author at the bottom of the chain, sort of being grateful to be noticed. And now the way you talk, it's like we are, you're the center of your business world almost.
Well, and not only are authors empowered, but readers are. And that's what will make the key difference for New York City publishing, is can they start to understand who their readers are and respond to them and connect with them and engage them, instead of just engaging with their distributors. And so that's why they're in such turmoil right now, and why as authors, because we do connect with our readers directly, we have new power. So it truly is a renaissance.
Okay, so when we talk about selling 1,000,000 books, one of the things that makes people excited is, oh my goodness, I could make $1,000,000, or I could make actually more than $1,000,000, and that makes people excited. And I think that excitement is good, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with ambition. I'm certainly ambitious. I want to be where you are. You inspire me. But maybe you could talk a bit about, how, that's a lot. There's a lot of work involved in that. But how can people make money with this business?
Okay, well, first of all, it goes right back to that secret we talked about. The making money part is the repeat part. Step 3. The write a good book, let your readers find it and tell their friends, repeat. That's where the money comes in. There's not many authors, even those people that have had really great success with one book, that have gone on to continued success if they're not writing and getting another book out there. So that's step number 1, is do the repeat part. Step number 2 is, it's great to be dreaming about all the money you could be making. I think with any career opportunity, no matter what profession we're in, that sometimes plays a part. But you also need to be very pragmatic about what you need now and what you're willing to spend now to start to build the career to that point. If you ask any business person, they'll say it always takes some seed money to get a business started, and to not, I think the rule of thumb is in any kind of business, people that are self-employed, is to not expect to make a profit for 2 years. So you have to kind of go into it prepared to pay the bills before you start to make the money out of it. You also need to have a very clear idea of what your budget is for each book, and because there are costs involved, whether it's editors or cover artists. Even if you do it yourself, the cost is time. And if you could be better spending that time writing, then that's a really high price to pay. The other thing that you need to take into consideration is, what is your plateau? What would pay the bills for you? For me, that plateau happened within a year of self-publishing. But remember, I did it very early on when almost no one had a Kindle, and Nook wasn't even around. So I think nowadays it's probably, the rule of thumb is going to be about 4 to 6 months and 4 to 6 books out there. Actually, I should reverse that. 4 to 6 books and give them 4 to 6 months out there so that you give your readers time. I would say that's probably a good rule of thumb before you can start to see those sales figures come in at a predictable level, and then you can start to plan, like, okay, do I need to increase that? Is that not quite enough? Am I making a profit? What can I do to change things? So you need to always be looking at it again. But always remember, it's not about the peak. It's not about having one big sale and one big success and how high you can get. It's about how low that plateau is. And, does it give you enough of a cushion below the curve so that you can make a living and be happy writing and have time to write more books?
But it's still cool when you can sell 100,000 books in a month.
I sold, my record is 135,000 in one day.
Oh. Everyone's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with that, though. That was a gift from Amazon. They I had no idea they were doing this. They took 5 of my books and put them on the Gold Box Deal of the Day. I knew they were considering the books for a potential promotion, but I had no clue till I woke up one morning and I had these emails from fans saying, oh my god, what did you do? And they would forward me this email from Amazon. I was like, oh my god. And then I thought, okay, I'll sell maybe a couple books. like those books skyrocketed, and I sold 135,000 copies in one day. But thank you, Amazon. I mean, that was a gift. You can't count on that, and I don't. I mean, if I took those books and that profit out of my equation, I still would have made, very, very nice six figures. For what I'm doing, it's a very nice run for my money right now.
But I like that story though, because that's lucky in quotes. That's the lucky
peak. That's the peak. Yeah. The plateau is where you have to look.
But also, luck happens to those people who are consistently pleasing their readers. And the only reason you got chosen is because your books were selling consistently well to an audience. Amazon don't pick losers, let's face it.
And you have to have a certain number of good reviews. It's an editorial pick. It's not a sales pick. They have an editorial review that goes through and decides what books, will kind of get the magic wand and get picked, get the fairy dust sprinkled over them. So that's why I felt very honored. I continue to feel very honored whenever any venue, gives me a shout out, because I know that's reader driven.
So, but you get that because of your secret, which is write more books, give it time, write more books.
Yeah, but make certain they're good books.
Good books.
They're worthy of your readers. Because like I said, it's the readers that are going to be driving all your success. I think so many authors forget that. It's not about us and our writing. It's about the readers. They're the ones that really drive this. So you can have a lot of fun writing and have wonderful, wonderful books out there. But if your readers aren't embracing them, you're not going to be making it a successful career. It might be a fun hobby, but when it turns into a career, that means that you have customers that you're serving and you're pleasing. And you have to think of it that way.
Fantastic. So just one last comment, CJ, on, what is the best thing about this? Is it a great time to be an author or what?
Oh my God, are you kidding? This is the best time in the world to be an author or a reader. I mean, it's a renaissance for both readers and writers, because readers, they can find any book they want out there, and writers can give them whatever the readers want. So I think it's a fantastic time.
And it's been great talking to you. So tell us, where can people find more about you and your books, and where can they learn more from you?
Well, to find out about my books, go to cjlyons.net. And I also have a blog for writers where I share resources, and that's called, this is based on my philosophy of writing, No Rules, Just Write.com. And that's write, WRITE.com. And on there, I have tons of free resources. I even have a couple free email classes. But I also have some paid classes called Pro Writer that I did with you, that Joanna and I partnered with. And we have those because we had so many people asking us for very, very detailed analysis and actionable plans that they could have and information. So, Joanna, I don't even remember how many hours are in each of those.
Lots and lots.
A lot of hours, multimedia, I mean, you name it, it's there. We're always adding new bonuses and new information. So if you do find that, I really want a class that's going to teach me everything, go to norulesjustwrite.com and click on Pro Writer, or you can access it through thecreativepenn.com. But if you want to just dip your toe in and get free information, then I would recommend just the regular norulesjustwrite.com or creativepenn.com. So how about that? I blurbed you too.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time, CJ. That was great.
Well, and thank you. This has been wonderful.